How are you there? The Achilles heel to the ANC's 2024 election campaign is going to be an influx, a sudden rushing influx of Zimbabweans into the South African job market, a job market that is already uh, bereft with so many problems, and that is all because President Cyril Ramaphosa continues to insist on supporting Emerson Mnangagwa's cabinet, who has got no clue whatsoever on how to change the economic conditions of Zimbabwe. We see that this inept cabinet of Emerson Mnangagwa is practically doing nothing to change the living conditions of the people of Zimbabwe except to feed the connected few. That is seen government failures, education failures, job network failure, deterioration of almost everything except one office, the passport office. It seems to me it is this strategic alliance between Zimbabwe and South Africa to make sure that passports come out quickly and effectively so that Zimbabweans leave Zimbabwe and come to South Africa. Perhaps in their agreement, they feel that a Zimbabwe that is empty of its citizens leaves the land at the disposal of ZANU PF and their ANC friends. And that is a recipe for disaster which the comrades in Pretoria did not calculate well. Because as the economy quickly deteriorates in Zimbabwe, the influx of Zimbabweans into South Africa going into an election season is going to be very much dramatized in South Africa, and it will break down the social cohesion in South Africa amongst the black population that the ANC strongly relies on to clinch next year's 2024 elections. Therefore, with Cyril Ramaphosa continually refusing to stop aiding ED Mnangagwa, this is going to be a problem or a surprise to the ANC when they see that the election results are going to point out to something of a future that they never expected to see, owing to their lack of addressing the Zimbabwean issue. There's already an economic crash in the townships in South Africa, and people are looking for someone to blame. Granted, there is many reasons why the economy can malfunction, but as long as people look for a victim, which in this case it is already foreigners, predominantly Zimbabweans, and seeing that situation, seeing that Ramaphosa is instead part of the problem in Zimbabwe, not just supporting Idi Mnangagwa, but being part of the problem. Whatever economic interests he has in Zimbabwe that make him maintain Idi Mnangagwa in power using the leverage that Pretoria has is going to bite back, and is going to bite back the president so hard it will be difficult for him to recover from it. Unless if the ANC does something, the internal politics of ANC put a stop to this, the whole ANC will fall together with the president because of failure to address a simple governmental issue. You do not beg despots who are your neighbors, who in turn cause their people to leave the neighboring country to come and destabilize the social cohesion in your own country. You will not win that battle. We cannot enforce a law against millions of hungry people. It does not matter how big a fence you put, they will break the fence and come to the place where there is a semblance of economic opportunity. So what we need to be thinking of doing now is to creating economic opportunities in Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans, so that those that are in Zimbabwe will stay and those that are outside Zimbabwe can begin to think of going back home, and that exodus of Zimbabweans from South Africa is going to look like a ANC policy victory in the eyes of black voters. And if it is done well before 2024, ANC will have a chance at surviving. Remember, ANC is already a dying horse. It needs a lucky break. And I'm telling you, the lucky break is for President Cyril Ramaphosa to cut off his ties with Emerson Mnangagwa immediately and begin to demand change in Harare and begin to exert force and power as he is supposed to be, and begin to show that South Africa is a power in the region, and use that leverage, that power, to ensure that Zimbabwe moves forward accordingly. And that is going to be seen in the eyes of the South African voter is a positive to, that will accrue to the ANC and the candidacy of Cyril Ramaphosa. He needs to go into the election with something to sell to the South Africans. The South African economy is dire at the moment, and the conditions, as I said, because of migration, is dire in the country. So Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC do not have anything to offer to the public, for the public to give them another 5-year mandate of ruling this country. Therefore, I suggest and I bring forward this, that for ANC to survive, it needs to cut off its ties with ZANU-PF. Whatever economic privileges that come with supporting Mnangagwa, I do not think that they compare with the losses that ANC will incur come 2024 general elections. So cool heads within the ANC will begin to think strategically and force Cyril Ramaphosa to have a mandate of stabilizing Zimbabwe. Have a great afternoon.